Hello, I'm Joe Tucker. Welcome to the podcast of the International Academy of Trial Lawyers, The Rule of Law, the Academy Speaks, and I'm president of the Academy. Today, we have another one of my close friends who's also a fellow of the Academy, Antoinette Collignon. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly, Antoinette?
Superb. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've been practicing. Where are you right now, Antoinette?
I'm in Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
Netherlands. And you are head of our international committee for the International Academy of Trial Lawyers. I want to talk to you about what's going on in Europe and around the world since you sort of have your pulse on what's going on there. One of the issues that we Americans are sometimes concerned about is how is the American democratic system being viewed currently from a European perspective?
Well, first of all, Joe, thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast. That's an honor to sit here and talk with you. Secondly, I would just say that my views on the world and on America, these are my personal views. So, having said that, I can tell you that we look at the US from the opposite side of the pond, and America has always been a beacon. The Americans, we appreciate them, we love them, but lately we have felt that things have changed, and in our perspective, America's society is no longer the democracy that it used to be. So that's how
That's
we.
disappointing to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really sorry to say so, but I think that democracy in the US is under attack, and I'm also afraid to tell you honestly that in Europe we also democracy is also a little bit under attack, and it needs work. But there's always hope. I'm positive, but at the moment I'm really sad to say that my view of American democracy has changed in a negative way.
Let me step back because I know you, but our listeners don't know. You could tell us a little bit about what you do and your European view and how it's informed.
I'm a personal injury lawyer. I have more than 30 years of experience, and I do a lot of cross-border international personal injury cases on the defendant side, as well as some on the plaintiff side. And I'm, among other things, working on the MH17 case. That's the flight MH17, the plane that was struck down by the Russian Federation over Ukraine, where 298 people died. So my work is international and personal injury. I have a keen interest in learning from other jurisdictions, and also I've been working with American lawyers for a long time.
Let's talk about the MH17 uh, flight that was shot down by Russia over Ukraine airspace. There was a recent victory that happened in there. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Well, the in the MH17 case, where we represent more than 490 relatives, we started a case at the European Court for Human Rights. That was in 2016. And at one point, so that is a claim against a case against Russia, saying Russia is accountable. Russia has violated the European Treaty of Human Rights, and it should be held accountable for what they did to these people, the passengers on board, and the atrocities afterwards. I will get back to that later. But at one point, the Dutch government decided to assist or decided to also file a claim at the European Court, which is called an interstate claim case, and that which is also about the MH17 case against Russia. So from that point on, the European Court of Human Rights has been working on the interstate case because that is always put above the individual applications. So in that interstate case, we recently had a huge victory in which the court, taking into consideration all the evidence that was out there, said, okay, Russia is liable. Russia has violated the right to life. Russia has tortured, has violated the obligation not to torture people by, that's Article 3 of the European Convention for Human Rights, by lying, by hiding evidence, etc. So this is a huge victory.
Yes.
And
Well, I
yes,
was going to
so
ask, why is the court's ruling against Russia so important for human rights and treaties?
uh, it it is very important because the and I will start with a little bit of short history of the European Court of Human Rights. As you know, the after World War II, the United Nations adopted the United Nations Charter on Human Rights, and that is not non-binding, but in Europe, a couple of countries decided that they would set up the European Council, and the European Council, the Council of Europe. And in the Council of Europe, the purpose was to uphold the human rights, and, as in the United Nations Convention. So then they issued the United Nations, the European Convention of Human Rights. So that is all in the 50s. And why is it? Because we have seen from the World War II that people need protection. Countries need to be held accountable for what they do. So this is, and in Europe, it's been functioning well. So we can hold the countries that are part of the Council of Europe, which has 46 countries at the moment, and 47 until the invasion of Ukraine, when Russia was set out of the Council of Europe.
So Russia was a part of the Council of Europe.
Yes, Russia was a part of the Council of Europe, so they had to abide to the European Treaty for the Convention of Human Rights. And in 2022, with the invasion of Ukraine, that stopped. So they are no longer part of the Council of Europe. But that doesn't mean that they can't be held accountable for their the violations of human rights until September 2022. So the MH17, which was downed in 2014, fell within the scope of the convention.
And what does it mean to be held accountable for a violation of human rights? Help me understand that.
Well, we have the Convention of the Human Rights, and within the convention, it says that the countries have to abide to the human rights which are in this convention. So it has a couple of articles, and basically it says you have the right to live, right to life, you have the right to family, a government should not torture you, you have right to education, you have freedom of religion, that sort type of things. And
it almost sounds like the American Constitution for countries who are signatories to this.
Yes. So countries should abide to these rules. It's for the protection of the people. And if your country violates these rules, then it can be held accountable, but not. Firstly, you have to
What do you
go
mean
to
by held?
your.
What do you mean by held accountable? What does
Well, you can
accountability
go.
look
Yeah,
like?
the institution where you can go is the European Court of Human Rights. There, first of all, you have to issue proceedings in your own country first, unless that is not possible. And with the MH17 case, we knew that it was not possible to file a lawsuit in Russia. So we went straight to the European Court of Human Rights. So that is one of the exceptions from how we deal with it. But basically, it's really important to have the European Convention of Human Rights. It's always very important that a country, a government, can be held responsible for the acts they do.
Antoinette, I want to shift gears a little bit. How you were talking about World War II, how has Europe's World War II experience shaped its commitment to the rule of law?
Very much. After the World War, everyone in Europe understood that what had happened should never, ever happen again. The atrocities that were committed against the Jewish population, but also against the Romas, against homos, against other minorities, were just so horrendous. So many people died, and also civilians died in the war. So the Europeans had the strong belief that this should never, never happen again. So in that light, they set up these international institutions to prevent this from happening again, to hold countries accountable.
Well, I'm going to get a little personal now as it relates to World War II. Can you share your father's story of survival with us, which is a very poignant story, and what it means to you today?
Yeah, that's a very personal story. It is indeed. My father was born in the Dutch Indies, which is today's Indonesia. But at that point in time, it was still part of the Netherlands. And he was born in Indonesia and lived there with his father and mother. And his father was a cello player, a professional cello player, but he also worked for the Dutch Oil Company. And during World War II, the Japanese invaded Indonesia. And what they did, they interned all the Dutch. And my granddad was a prisoner of war because he also served in the military in Indonesia, because trying to defend the country against the Japanese. So he was interned in a camp. And my father, who was still 4 years old, very small boy, he had to live with his mother in another camp, and they suffered tremendously. And they survived. And after the war ended, when they came home, he saw his father coming on the driveway, and you need to understand that his dad, he took to the camps a couple of his possessions, amongst which his dear cello, where he studied the conservatory, he played on it. And if you have an instrument, everyone who plays an instrument, the instrument becomes a little bit a part of you. So my father sees him walking on the driveway with one little suitcase with the remaining of his belongings in one hand, and a bundle of wood in the other hand, neatly packed together. And my dad asked his father, "So why did you bring wood?" And my granddad said, "That is my cello." And the Japanese they didn't like it, the cello, or for some reason, they want to punish him. They put the bayonet through the cello. and then put the cello in pieces. They just cut it in pieces. And it is still, after the World War, my granddad took it, brought it home to the Netherlands, and it was still hanging in the wall, at the wall in our parents' house. So they reconstructed this cello, and it still has this hole in it. And my whole childhood, I was looking at this cello, and would ask my father, why is the cello hanging on the wall, and why are you not playing on it? So that's how I learned the story of my family and what happens um, if there is a war and if there is no rule of law. So, and they have suffered extremely, as many other people in World War II. But we know about the war, and we know about the traumas of the World War through the family history, which is still really close because it's my dad. So
That is a story of resilience and perseverance and strength of both your grandfather and your father through those troubled times. How has that shaped your worldview about what's going on in the world? We have war raging with Ukraine and Russia. We have the what's going on in Israel and Palestine. And how are these things that are going in the world? How does your worldview look at these things?
um, it makes me really sad that, but also stronger in the belief that we have to uphold the rule of law no matter what, because I know from personal experience, from my family's experience, for friends' experience in here in Europe, uh, what happens, and that this should never happen again. And see what is happening now. It happens again. So it breaks my heart for the people in Ukraine. It breaks my heart to see what happens to innocent people in Gaza, to innocent people in other parts of the world, like in Africa. And it's horrible. It's horrendous. And we have seen peace in Europe for so long. And why is that? Because we have these institutions in place. We have the European Court of Human Rights, we have the ICC, we have European Union. And I strongly believe that we have to work on the rule of law. We have to work on democracy in order to prevent it, and hope one day this whole horror will stop.
Well, let me say to you that the rule of law seems to be under attack also in various European countries, as though some countries have forgotten the dramatic and hard lessons of World War II. What are your thoughts about that?
I agree. We see it in Hungary, for instance, where so-called of the strong leaders, authoritarian people, try to grab power, and you watch it, and I can only see the horrors, and I can only I'm really sad about it, but it again, it makes me feel stronger that we absolutely need to fight for democracy, and we need to fight to uphold the rule of law. It is so important to do so, and how to do so. It is difficult, but and also my personal view is we have to educate, get the message out how important it is.
Well, one of the things that we've talked about a few times on the podcast is we sometimes cannot, at least in America, agree on a set of facts. And at one time, we could agree on what was a set of facts and argue from that. And there's so much misinformation going on in all aspects. How are how the democracies dealing with the misinformation that is going on when it comes to things, whether it be Ukraine and Russia and what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where children are starving every day in the Democratic Republic of Congo because of the civil war that's going on. How's the misinformation interrupting democracy?
Well, yeah, it is absolutely interrupting because young people, but people as a whole, because of the TikTok, the Instagram, it is really difficult for some people to make a difference between what is real and what's not real, what is disinformation, what's not disinformation, what is the real, what are facts. It's problematic. It's problematic, but I still have hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I really do hope so, but it is difficult, and there come in the journalists. Journalists have an important role to play in establishing the facts, and courts as well. So I was so pleased with the verdict of the European Court of Human Rights in the MH17 case, which was, I must say, it was linked with they ruled together with claims of Ukraine against Russia in the same period, in the same area where the atrocities of the Russians took place, because the courts set the facts. They established, based on all the evidence they gathered, that what Russia had done, that Russia had violated the human rights.
Well, let's talk about Russia and Ukraine and how Europe is feeling about that. And has that helped further solidify the rule of law in Europe, or is it falling by the wayside based upon the war that Russia started against Ukraine?
I think that the general view in Europe is that we need to stand together and prevent Russia to further invade Europe and destroy our democracies and our freedom. Because if you end democracy, you will not have freedom.
We're going to hear more from Antoinette next week in part 2 of this very good discussion about the rule of law, what's going on in Europe, and Europe's perspective of what's going on in America. Thank you for listening. I'm Joe Tucker.